Out of all the shows I've seen, out of all the characters I've seen, from series, from movies, from animated features, no character is worse than Wendy Bird. Yeah, I said it. No character to me is worse than Wendy Bird. Wendy Bird is one of the worst characters I've ever seen in my life. Right up there with the Bojacks, right up there with the Griffiths, right up there with the Cerseys. Wendy Bird is awful. So if you don't know who Wendy Bird is, she's from the Netflix series Ozark. And before I go any further, this will obviously contain spoilers. So if you do not want to be spoiled, then this is not the video for you. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, Ozark is a great show. I would give it a 9 out of 10, if not higher. I didn't love the ending, and it wasn't because the ending was bad. I just didn't like the ending mainly because of Wendy Bird. I felt that Wendy Bird got away completely clean. She didn't change. She wasn't contrite. She didn't learn anything. There was no justice for all the horrible things that Wendy Bird did. Wendy Bird didn't change. And so one of the things that I can't stand about Wendy is that she never stopped lying. Now, you might be saying, well, Brian, how can you be so harsh on Wendy? Everybody was being deceitful. Everybody was being dishonest. It was a show about drug lords and all kinds of horrible things. That's true. But nobody was as deceitful, as just dishonest for no reason as Wendy Bird. At the beginning, it seemed like Omar was the really, really bad person. And he was. He was horrible. And in the end, he got his justice. But Wendy, in my opinion, was as bad, if not worse. Now, you might be saying, well, Omar Navarro got people taken out. So did Wendy. I mean, not only did she get people taken out, she got her own brother taken care of. Her own brother. Yes, she was sad. Yes, she was devastated, but she did that. She made that choice. She tried to get her own child locked up multiple times. She did that. She was despicable. If you look up the definition of despicable, you're going to see Wendy Bird. And it's not that I don't get the fact that they were doing this, fighting for their lives. I understand Marty. I understand sometimes having to be dishonest. I understand sometimes having to make moves. Wendy was making moves that were not necessary. She was making moves and being dishonest with her own family. You could not trust Wendy Bird. I mean, Marty, no saint. I mean, he's definitely the good guy of the show. And I think that he actually had a good heart, but he could not trust Wendy. And no matter what he did, Wendy would always blindside him, always go behind him, always undermine him. It drove me crazy. And I kept thinking, okay, they're building her up. They're building her up. They're going to turn it around. If they don't turn it around, then there's no way she can get out of the show clean because they've just made her too bad. And it's like normally when I'm watching a show, I'm always looking for the clues. I'm always watching the writing because I feel like with most shows, they write people into corners. If you get to a point where you're just so bad and they don't redeem you, then you're not going to make it out clean, meaning there's something that you're going to have to lose. She lost nothing. Now, maybe some people would argue that Ben was what she lost. Ben is the balance. Ben is the justice for Wendy. Not even close. For one reason, she was the reason why Ben stayed. Another reason, she is the reason why Ben was ultimately dealt with. It was her fault. She didn't have to do it. It just absolutely made me sick to my stomach to see somebody so power crazy, so power hungry. And maybe that was the point of Wendy Bird, is that at the beginning we were thinking Marty was the criminal. And, it seemed to me like Marty was always just trying to survive. Most of the show, if not all of the show, all it seemed like Marty wanted to do was survive. But somehow, somewhere along the way with Wendy, she got a taste of power. Now, was that who she was always? It's hard to know. It's kind of like that show BoJack I referenced earlier, where BoJack is terrible, but everybody in the show is terrible. And so it's like kind of comparing terrible people, toxic people. It's a silly endeavor. But with Ozark, I really felt that Wendy stood out above all the other characters, even Navarro, all the other characters, because she was just deceitful and at times that she didn't have to be. She was deceitful and underhanded with her family, manipulative, and it's just like you couldn't know. Like with even like so, for example, a great example of this is her father, who was a terrible, terrible person, a terrible man. But it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell which one is the chicken and which one is the egg, which one is causing the toxic relationship. Is he right about Wendy? Because there's always that saying, two things can be true at the same time. He could be awful and she could be worse, or they both could be equally awful. I don't know. All I know is that it absolutely drove me crazy watching Wendy Bird continue to screw over every single person in her life. And at the end of the day, she gets away with it. She gets away with it. There was no justice for her. And it's like, I would have been able to accept her character more. You know what I mean? Like, let's take a Game of Thrones, for example, with Cersei's. We all knew that she had to get what was coming to her, right? Even with Daenerys, as soon as we saw the moment that she sicked the dragons on the city, everybody knew what was coming to her. That's justice. That's how it's normally played out in writing. But with Ozark, at the end of the whole thing, Wendy Bird gets away scot-free. And it's not even really scot-free. It's worse than scot-free, because the only reason why she was able to get away with it is by manipulating and sacrificing Navarro and Ruth. It's just crazy. She is such a terrible, terrible person, which means she was written brilliantly, because I finished that show a week ago and I'm still waking up from sleep like, I can't believe she got away with it. It's like that scene from Breaking Bad where Aaron Paul's character is like, Jesse Pinkman can't, he's like, he can't keep getting away with it. That's what I felt like the entirety of watching Ozark. It's like, she can't just keep getting away with it. And yet she did, because she was smart. She was brilliant and she was good at what she did. But she was a terrible character. If you like to torture yourself, actually, no, it's a great show. You will 100% enjoy it. It's very dark. It's very gruesome. So just be warned about that. But brilliant writing, brilliant character development, great world building. I don't know if we say world building in non-anime stories, but I really enjoyed Ozark. That being said, I thought Wendy Bird is one of the most despicable characters I have ever seen in my life. I cannot believe she got away. I almost want them to do a spinoff or a sequel just so that they can get justice, because Wendy Bird is just awful.